Bonus.
Hey guys, I want to thank you so much for being first listeners to this on the podcast, or if you're watching this live. I want to invite you guys as a thank you to be a guest on the show. So all you need to do is send me an email. The email is guest@investingyourselfpod.com. In the subject, say podcast series guest, and in the body, just say, hey, who you are, what your podcast is, where you're about. Send me 3 episodes you think I'll enjoy listening to, and then I'll reach out to you and we'll schedule a time for you to be on the show. So remember, that's guest@investingyourselfpod.com. And I look forward to listening to your podcast and then learning about you. So without further ado, let's listen into today's show. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Invest in Yourself, the podcast series with your podcast mogul, Phil Better. And today I'm very happy to have another guy who has so many podcasts that they compete with mine. I got my good friend Tim here. Tim, thank you so much for being a guest on the show.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be here. I love watching your stuff, and as I tweet often or comment often on your post, you are my mogul, so I listen attentively.
Thank you so much for that, calling me your mogul. It feels nice. It warms the cockles of my cold little heart. Tim, you've had me be a guest on one of your shows at least twice now, right?
I
Or at
think
least
twice,
one.
yeah.
Twice, yeah.
I think twice.
Let's talk about your first podcast. Which was your first podcast? What got you into podcasting?
So my first podcast was focused on forward, or is focused on forward. I say was, like it's not like we didn't just start our 3rd season. But yeah, so that's focused on forward. I started that after my daughter's 97-day hospital stay. In 2019, she was diagnosed with a condition called Guillain-Barré syndrome. And when I came home, my head was just churning. It was a bag of cats, and I needed a way to express myself and talk about it and deal with it. And my therapist thought that this would be a good format. She wanted me to do like a video blog, a vlog of just me sitting there talking about me. And I was like, no dice. That's not going to happen.
Enough.
Yeah, especially at that time. Could I do it now? Probably. I probably wouldn't have a problem now. But at that time, having not done anything in this format, it wasn't going to happen. So instead, I talked to a good buddy of mine who, shameless plug here for my buddy Tommy over at the Curiosity Hour podcast. Strongly recommend that show. It's a beautiful show. And I always say that it's what I want Focused on Forward to be when it grows up.
There you go.
They have a beautiful show. And so I was talking to my buddy Tommy, and he said, why don't you just do a podcast? Talk to other people who've gone through some crap too. And talk about what they've done and how they've moved forward in life. And it was like everything just kind of clicked all at once, because during my daughter's hospital stay and during my own heart issues when I was in my 30s, my wife and I always had the saying, well, we're just going to focus on moving forward. That's all we can do. We're going to focus on moving forward. So when it came time to start the podcast, it was actually really very simple. When it came to a title, what the show premise was going to be, everything, as soon as Tommy said that, everything just kind of clicked in my head. And I was like, all right, it's Focused on Forward. That's what we're going to do. So.
Awesome. So you got into podcasting pretty much to take care of what was going on with what was you were dealing with in real life. It was a way for you to cope with what was going on in your real life.
Oh yeah, that's absolutely. Awesome. It was and I still say this, it's the cheapest therapy I've ever had. It's an opportunity for me to talk to other people. Not that you ever want to compare traumas or what people have gone through and put yours up against somebody else's. But in some levels, you do that anyway. And it's helpful to know that if they've gone through this, then maybe I can go through this. And it gives you the confidence when you listen to these people's stories and everything that they've gone through. It personally, for me, it inspires me and gives me the confidence to continue pushing forward, because some of the people that I've had on my show have really gone through some stuff. They've gone through some awful, horrific stuff. And they're so blasted positive about life and what they're doing. And it's it's incredible. It's very moving, and
Mm.
I just take such strength from them in order for me to be able to go, yeah, I ran out of creamer this morning for my coffee. My life is not that bad. So, again, not to sound like I'm downplaying anybody or anything, but it's, sometimes you have to inject a little bit of a sense of humor into life's realities in order to help us get by.
But also with your podcast, you get to see like life could be a little more difficult because people are going through either things are harder or maybe they're going through a different dealing with what you're dealing with in a different way. So it helps you with the coping
Yeah.
mechanism. So focus
Yeah,
on
absolutely.
forward. You started it to learn about other people's situations, learn how they cope with the hardness and the roughness of life.
Hmm.
But you also have two other podcasts. One that you just recently launched a few months ago, if I'm not mistaken,
Correct.
right?
Yep.
Pulp Culture Addicts, right?
Pop culture addicts. Yep.
Yes,
We
I'm doing
started.
good here.
You're
Actually, no,
doing
I did my
great.
work. Um,
Woohoo.
Now this one you've had some really interesting guests on.
Yeah. Yeah. We've had a really good run of, I usually say I've had a good run of bad luck, but I've had a good run of good luck. So yeah, we started right out the chute. We started with Carol Baskin from Tiger King. That was our very first episode.
Oh
And it's
God, hitting it high.
yeah, yeah. Honestly, it was a really cool interview. She is nothing. If you've only ever watched Tiger King, I strongly recommend you literally watch anything else about her. Um, Tiger King paints her out to be the Wicked Witch of the West. She's this evil woman from Florida and all these other things. And based on the hour that I got to spend with her and I got to chat with her, I got none of that from her. She's very down to earth. I'm not saying that she did or didn't do some things that she's been accused of, but what I am saying is that I found her to be very likable, very easy to talk to, very easy to chat with, very personable, and highly, highly intelligent. She's a gem to talk to.
That's great. And who are some of the other amazing people that you've had the chance to talk with, and how did you go about connecting with those people?
Okay, so I've had the fortune because I'm a huge '90s music fan. I graduated from high school in the mid '90s, so I'm a child of the '90s. Long live grunge, But so I was beside myself when we got to chance to talk with Stephen Perkins from Jane's Addiction, and for me that was minutes before he came on the camera. I'm sitting there like bouncing in my chair, going, "We're gonna talk with Stephen Perkins." Um,
Yeah, I know that feeling.
yeah, here's the thing. I'm a giant nerd. I'm 6'3", a little fluffy, but I'm just a big nerd. And so for me to be able to talk to my musical heroes, my Star Wars heroes, things like that, I get a little,
Flustered.
and I got to work around it. I try to get that all out before I come on camera, but um, I've made some really fantastic connections through podcasting. Not only just other podcasters like yourself, my buddy Jason over at Three Geeks Podcast, Jeff Dewaskin, Mick Manhattan from the Scene Snaps. Love all those guys. They've been very influential, and all of you have been very influential in what I do and how I go about what I do. But I've made nice connections through those folks because they've been so willing to help me in my growth. So I was able to hook up with a couple of different PR reps over time and just said, hey, I'm starting a new podcast. Here's my other two shows. This is what I'm doing. And here's some of the guests that I've had on those shows. And most of those guests that I've had on the other two shows, on Focused on Forward and Funny Science Fiction, I've had to knock on the doors, kick the doors down, just keep knocking, keep trying. And maybe even a little begging, and to get a few people on. But by the time I've started Pop Culture Addicts, I've had a bit. I like to think that we have a little bit of a reputation now that
Mhm.
we've worked our way. I'm not saying that we're like, hey, we're no Howard Stern. People, we've only had a couple people come to us and say, hey, I'd like to be on your show, which I take as a high compliment.
It's a huge compliment when you get people saying, "Hey, I want to be on your show."
Yeah,
You're like, "Wait, you want to be on my little baby? You want to come on to my
exactly.
child?" Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, exactly. But I made contacts with a couple PR reps, and I just said, "Hey, these are my other shows. This is what I'm doing. If you have people that are looking to promote something, this is the gist of the show. Let's talk. Who do you got?" And next thing I know, I'm talking to the rep of Stephen Perkins. I'm talking to the rep of I'm talking to the rep of Leland Sklar, who's a world famous bass player, who you may not know him by name, but if you've ever listened to, I don't know, any Phil Collins song, you've heard his music. He's been Phil Collins touring and session bassist for years. So I mean,
You're one stop
he's
away from Phil
amazing.
Collins, pretty much, is what you're saying.
Yeah, we on Funny Science Fiction we're playing a game right now. The three of us in our little host box, we're playing a game of how many degrees of separation can we have from Nathan Fillion. We call it circling the drain, circling the Nathan. We are so close to, one day Nathan Fillion will be a guest. That's my hope. I just keep putting that out in the universe. So if by chance Nathan Fillion ever listens to this, we would love to talk to you on Funny Science Fiction. So,
and Nathan Fillion, if you want, the link is in the show notes down below. Well, first of all, thank you for even listening to this podcast. That's an amazing compliment on mine, because he is a Canadian icon. But the link to join and become a member of the amazing guests that Tim has had, show notes down below. Click on it. I'll make sure it's the top link for you so you don't have to scroll that much. But it's the top link. Go over, sign up, make sure you become a guest on Tim's show, because it's worth it, Ryan. No, sorry, Nathan. Ryan Fillion. Ryan Fillion. There we go. Ryan Fillion. I mean, Ryan Reynolds and Nathan Fillion would be just.
I'll take them both. No argument. I'm just saying.
You're not gonna. Sorry, no. Ryan. No. You can't. Come on. I need.
Sorry. No. Holding out for Nathan. Not gonna happen.
Yeah, no. But that's insane. So currently, how many degrees are you separated from Nathan Fillion?
1.
You're 1 degree That's amazing.
I have a couple of our last guests. One has been aired. One has not been aired. Both are friends with Nathan Fillion. And I'm like, if you don't mind, maybe shoot him a text, tell him how much fun you had. So we'll see.
That is impressive that you're 1 away from your dream guest. And you know what? I would suggest checking out Travis Chappell. He was one of my dream guests to have on my podcast.
Actually, I watched that episode. That was a good episode.
I was so nervous. I hate that episode. For me, it's my worst episode, but everybody's like, Phil, you did a good job. I'm like, no, I wasn't. It was horrible. Stop saying that. It's all because of Travis.
Honestly, that what you just expressed there is going to be me in 2 weeks on Funny Science Fiction. So I'm a huge Star Wars nerd. Love Star Wars. It's my everything in my life. Okay.
So Return of the Jedi is my #1 film.
You'll like our guest then. Because that's one of his favorite films of all time as well. And he's a Star Wars actor. So
you're going to tell me off air? Don't tell it out live on air.
I'm going to tell you off air. But all I'm going to say is we're calling it episode 66. Because it is actually episode 66. But I mean,
it's amazing.
And it's a Star Wars guy, and it's a pretty big Star Wars guy. The whole time on camera, I'm like, tell me more. And I'm trying not to.
Oh my God. I can't wait to. Oh God. The listeners to this are going to be furious with us, but oh my God, I can't wait. So if you want to know who episode 66 or Order 66 is going to be, you got to check out Tim's podcast. But oh my God. Yeah. So as I was saying, Travis Chappell, he's the king of networking, because he's got an amazing guest. He just had an interview with Shaq of all people. I got that email, and he's Grant Cardone. Like, for me, it's a lot of people in the entrepreneurial world that he's interviewed, and that's why I love it. But he talks about how to take and end up landing these amazing guests, and the simple fact that you've already had 2 people that are close friends with Nathan Fillion. You've interviewed other celebrities regularly, somewhere on that A to Z list of celebrities, but those are something like access you have. Like, if you want, you could send a personalized message or video to Nathan through Instagram, Twitter, or whatever, saying, hey, we've had XYZ on the show. They're good buddies of yours. We would love to have you on. Here's in the next link. Next message will have a link. And you can try that, because that's how he got, Travis got like Shaq, got Molly Bloom, got Grant Cardone, and people like that. Or you can pay at a convention to say, hey, can you have 5 minutes of your time? I'll pay for it.
Right. Yeah. The thing is, I'm 2 things. I'm greedy and cheap all at the same time. I'm cheap that I don't want to pay, not that I'm unwilling to pay for a guest, but if I'm going to pay for a guest, I want more than 5 minutes. So that makes me greedy. you know. So I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'll pay. You know, I'm not against the idea of paying for a guest,
But
but I want more than
you want at
5
least
minutes.
30. You want more than the
Yeah,
5 minute quote.
yeah, I
Um,
want
you,
my money's worth. No, just
and you should check out Travis's platform
Guestio, right?
Guestio. Yeah,
Yeah,
Guestio. It has an amazing assortment of guests on it, and there's some more business towards, but I'm pretty sure there's some going to be some celebrities on there that you can pull on from for any one of your podcasts.
yeah. But actually, I started looking at it. I signed up for it the 2 weeks ago,
Nice,
I
very good.
think. I was going back through some of your older episodes, and I went back across that one. I was like, oh yeah, I was going to do that, and some of those things. Your
It's
life
yeah.
get busy, and I was like, yeah, I completely forgot about it. And then I was going back through the episodes, and I was like, oh yeah, So
Sign it is an amazing platform to have because you have the other podcast platforms or guest platforms out there, but none of them have what I want to say like high quality guests that you need. Like you can't finding John Lee Dumas is close to impossible, but he's on Guestio, so it's like okay, pay the $100, $200 to have him on the show, and then you have
right,
John Lee Dumas or Tim Ferriss, or he has Les Brown on there. Of all, like Les Brown is a little expensive, but Les Brown is a huge name in the motivational and public
right.
speaking area.
But it all depends on what if you're going to pay that amount, if you're happy to pay that amount for two reasons. One is, does it have personal impact for you?
Mhm.
And number two, what is your audience going to, how do you leverage that with your audience? If your audience is going to pull it in and they're going to love it, why do you care what the cost is? You
Exactly,
know?
because the it's going to pay out in spades. And I love how you brought your audience because I know you're someone who cares deeply about your audience and you've done your audience avatars and that. And so it's finding the guest that resonates with your audience is the most important thing. So I'm glad
Right.
that you're focusing on that and not just anybody willy-nillying onto your
Right.
show.
Well, I'm
So
not going to say that hasn't happened, but that has.
hey, it's okay to have once in a while a randomized guest on because it keeps the content fresh, and you never know who's going to listen to that episode and resonate with
Oh,
it.
sure. Especially in the early ongoings of any new podcast.
Yeah,
It's just, oh, you'll be on the show. Sure. Hey, we need some content. Here's a microphone. Sit down. All right, let's talk.
yeah. Um, so you've launched 3 podcasts. You have your Focus Forward, Funny Science Fiction, and now you have
Hmm.
Pop Culture.
Hmm.
Is there plans for more?
Not if I want to stay married. I
Makes
love my
sense.
wife and I love my family, but with 3 podcasts, 2 kids still at home, one who has a chronic illness and trying to work for a living, and my wife, it anymore would be. I would have to have a full time team that does all the research, all the show prep, going out and finding the guests, willing to start. Where literally all I'm doing is sitting down in front of a mic, smiling and talking for an hour a week. If that's what it was, then yeah, maybe a fourth one. But right now, negative ghostwriter. Pattern is full. So
Um, why did you want to start your third podcast? Like your second one, if I'm not mistaken, the second one is yours and someone else's, if I'm not
correct. So funny science fiction is the baby of an author named Drayton Allen. Drayton is the sci-fi author. He's the show founder. He's our group page founder, which we have our group right now on Facebook is up to 195,000 people. Yeah, so it's a massive group. If you want to come and talk to other sci-fi nerds about funny, stupid memes, theories, and all that kind of stuff, it's a very, very family-friendly page. Uh, we allow zero gatekeeping. We have a zero tolerance for that. So, you're
Awesome.
not, if somebody starts giving you crap because you like this and they don't, they're gone. We don't put up with that.
I
Um,
like that. Very strict, but also it's a very healthy community. You're keeping out the
yeah,
toxicity that is
we
prevalent in
try.
a lot of fan bases.
Star Wars. Star Wars.
I didn't want to say it, but yeah. It's funny. There's a show that I was a guest on. Unfortunately, it's not airing anymore, but it's the top list or something like it's the top
Okay.
ranking of everything. And I was a guest on it. It was like, what is the best and what is the worst? Like they place it, and I came in with toxic fandom, and they were
Hmm.
like, yeah, that's the worst thing of life. You win the belt of ranking. And so it was a nice little going for every time I would be listening. I'm like, am I going to be dethroned? And if I wasn't, I would put up the McGregor meme. Had a meme of McGregor sitting on the cage with both belts. So I would have their logo on there, and every time I'm like, I'm still the champ.
Nice.
Yeah,
nice.
So yeah, no, it's how do you I guess quote unquote gatekeep the gatekeepers?
Well, we have a dedicated group of admins and mods who want this page to be what we kind of envision. We all, I hate to use the word police it, but we police it pretty heavily. We have keywords set up. We have people just, we have a good group of people who have been with us for a long time, and they report anything that we have missed. And it's a community involvement. It's not just us, it's our community as well being involved and being, hey, this got said and this doesn't meet the page criteria. Maybe you guys should check it out. I have a bunch of people in the group who will private message me individually and be like, hey, didn't know if you saw this, but you might want to check it out. So that's kind of helpful too. But yeah, Drayton set up this page so that we could have a fun place for nerds to land, because there were so many toxic pages out there. And he set it up to, he was given advice that when he wrote his book, Custodians of the Cosmos, that instead of promoting the book, to promote the genre. So he started promoting sci-fi, and he took his book and we promote it inside the page, and we promote it on the show, and things like that. And that's how the podcast started. It was his. He just came to me and said, hey, you do a podcast. You want to do another one? Sure. I got a mic. Let's do this. And that's how Funny Science Fiction rather began.
That's awesome. You got hired in essence to be a podcast host.
Yeah.
That's free. Amazing. That's a crazy job. It's like it's just proving that podcasting is the replacement of radio, terrestrial and satellite radio. Because we're being hired. You got hired to host a show, like just as if someone would be hired to host a radio show or even a TV show, because you guys do a live stream of it,
right?
So, how long did it take you to get comfortable behind or doing the live streaming? Because you said before it was like a hell no to the no doing
right.
Live streaming and video. How long did doing focus on forward did it take to get you comfortable in front of the camera?
Let's see. I started live streaming in late 2020. It's 2022. Yeah, I'm still not comfortable. I'm working on it. It's a work in progress. Certain nights are easier, especially my co-host on both Funny Science Fiction and my co-host on Pop Culture, although we haven't done any lives yet for that, have made it easier for me to be able to get on camera and talk and help me to realize that it's okay to be myself on camera, and that I can, I don't, because in my mind always, when I pictured a host in years back, it was always, and today on Funny Science Fiction, staunch shirt, collared, pressed, all this stuff.
The news stuff.
Yeah, not a nerd in glasses and a t-shirt sitting back here going, guys, did you see the latest episode of Bubba Futt?
By the way, I haven't seen it, so no spoilers.
No, I'm not going to, but if you notice, I totally mispronounced the name on purpose.
Yeah, so, I did. I kind of just wanted to roll through it. I didn't want to call you out on it. I'll let I was going to be like, the nerds are going to catch him. They'll probably say something, but
no,
it's okay.
I said that on purpose. It's okay. Goose Fraba, calm down. So, but yeah, so I'm still working on it. It's I think like anything else, if you're at a point where you're too comfortable with it, you're doing something wrong. I want to have a little bit of nerves, because I think nerves are what keep you on edge and what keeps you focused on what you're doing so that you can do the best job you can. Because I think that anytime I've gotten too comfortable in anything is when something will, and can go awry. So you're not going to have a good show. In my opinion, you're not going to have a good show. I'm not going to have a good show if I am 100% calm, cool. I'm like, yeah, this is no big deal. you can watch on the couple times that I felt that way. You can go back, and I'm not going to tell you which ones the live shows they are, but you can find them, and it's pretty clear when the crap has gone from here all the way up to fan level. So yeah.
All right, I want to talk apart from Nathan Fillion, who is
Yeah.
a Canadian icon. Who is another guest that is so funny? Funny science fiction, I'm guessing, is Nathan Fillion, or pop culture is Nathan Fillion, right?
Either way. Sure.
Either
I'll
way,
take one.
if they come on, obviously
I'm
on any
not
one of your
picky.
podcasts, you're not going to be picky, but
No.
obviously he would be better suited towards either the focus pop culture or the funny science fiction, because he fits into those because of his movies.
Correct.
But for your first one, focus on forward, who would be your ideal guest for that? Like celebrity, not celebrity, who, like, is there a person that you're like, this is in my top 10 of guests I would love to have on this show?
Honestly, I've never sat down for that show and said, it's just this one person. It's always been about the story.
Okay.
It's always been story driven, because that one I've had one or two famous people on focused on forward, but it was because of their stories, or what they were doing. Like I had the co-creator Phineas and Ferb, Jeff Swampy Marsh on focused on forward, because he had a story about he and his son Django working with this, goodness gracious, a charity in California called A Walk on Water. I had to think of the name of the company. But they help autistic kids get out in the water for aquatic therapy and do surf therapy, and all these. It's a beautiful story, and what they're doing and why they're doing it, and how much of themselves they've invested in A Walk on Water, and all the things that A Walk on Water is doing for these beautiful families who they have nonverbal children, and getting them out in the water, and just there's been very few times where I have cried openly on camera. That was one of them. Um,
Fully
it's just a
understand
beautiful
why.
story when they're talking about these children who are nonverbal, non-communicative, getting out in the water, and just the absolute sheer happiness that these kids are showing and having, uh, doing these things. And yeah, it's a beautiful story. It's still available to listen to, actually, and it's actually on my YouTube channel. If anybody ever wants to watch the interview, it's really
I'll make
cool.
sure that it's in the link. So as soon as we're done this interview, send that off to me so I can make sure that it's in the links,
Will
so
do.
that people can listen to it and watch it, and watch you openly weep about this story. I want them to see you weep, but yeah, hear the story. That's going to be great. But you want to see a grown man cry? There's where you go. No, but it's
There's one of
obviously
them.
I'm going to want to watch it because I want to hear more about it, and actually, because the way you're telling the story, it's like already it's hitting the heartstrings. And I'm thinking about other podcasters who are in
Mm-hmm.
the autistic world, like we know Adam Millichip from TWS Sports
Yeah.
Podcast. Amazing guy. I know you've been in talks with him about having him or the kids on the show. So I'm
Yeah, I want
really
to have them on the show and talk with them about what they're doing with their podcast, and with TWS, and how he got involved with it, why he got involved with it. I love listening to people's backstories. That's the premise of Focused on Forward. I want to know your backstory. I want to know what happened, why it happened, but just like the name says, it's not just about what happened. At a certain point in the show, I'm like, okay, well, that all happened, but when did you become focused on forward? How did you move forward in life? And then I want to know how they springboarded from there, and how they took this crap sandwich that life has handed them, and how they were able to move forward. And for me, that's the joy of the show, is hearing how these people are basically fighting life every single day, no matter what it's dealt them, and they're going to win. And I love it.
Oh, I know. I love it. I do listen to your Focus on Forward every once in a while. It's in my rotation of podcasts,
Nice, thank you.
because it is great. I don't listen to every episode. I look for the episodes that resonate with me, but
Sure, understood.
it's I love hearing these people's stories, because just like you, I love hearing like entrepreneurials backstories about how they got started, why they got started, where
Mm-hmm.
they're going spring forward. And this is specifically to talk with podcasters about their stories starting podcasting. Like, I never knew you started this because it was a way for you to cope with how your daughter was in the hospital and
Yeah.
coping with your health issues. So it's like, oh, that's amazing. I get to learn that. And obviously you jump starting at the second and then the third podcast because you're just improving your skill set and just wanting to have those stories. So this So I like that we're similar in nature, that we want to hear the stories, just different stories from our guests.
Yeah, there's all these people who are, the podcasting geniuses out there. There's only one mogul, but there's a whole lot of people who think they're geniuses. But they're always like, content's king, content's king. And to some degree, that's true. It is true. But in my world, story is king.
Mm-hmm.
I want the story to win. It's not so much about, how much great content I can string together. For me, it's about that one. I focus on every episode and trying to make sure that the story of the person is rightly and properly told, especially whenever going through the editing process. If there was any glitches in the audio or anything that I have to take out or whatever, I want the story to come across that this is what happened, this is how they got forward, and this is what they're doing with the rest of their world. I want that to be clearly shown.
And you do a magnificent job of it with Focus on Forward, and as well funny science fiction and Pop Culture Addicts, because they are all just amazing podcasts. And having the honor of being a guest on your shows have been great. So I thank you very much for allowing me to repay you with being a guest on my show. Tim, we're coming up to the end. I'm going to jump off screen. I'm going to give you a chance to let my audience know where they can find you, where they can listen to your podcast. Let them know everything and anything you want. The time is yours.
Okay. So, hi, I'm Tim Beisiegel, the host of Focused on Forward, co-host of Funny Science Fiction Podcast and Pop Culture Addicts. So, as we've been talking about, Focused on Forward is a story-driven podcast about how people have overcome different challenges and obstacles in life. And for the most part, it's stories of everyday people overcoming some pretty fantastically large things. You can find that on any podcast provider that you listen to: Apple, Google, Spotify, the whole run. It's out there. It's an audio-only podcast, although there are some episodes. For a while, I was doing a live interviews on YouTube, so you can still find those on our YouTube channel. Then, of course, there's Funny Science Fiction and Pop Culture Addicts. Those two are available on your typical audio-only podcast locations, but those are very much video interviews with active YouTube channels. So you can find those at Funny Science Fiction and Pop Culture Addicts. However, if you want to talk with me, the best way to do that is through Twitter. I'm kind of turned into a little bit of a Twitter junkie. But Twitter, you can find Focused on Forward at Podcast FOF. That's the address there, at Podcast FOF. Funny Science Fiction is at Funny Sci-Fi. And Pop Culture Addicts is at PCA Pod Show. And we have some great guests coming up for both Pop Culture Addicts and Funny Science Fiction. You do not want to miss what's coming up if you're a Star Wars fan for Funny Science Fiction. We have a couple of amazing major guests coming up that, I'll just leave it at that. But episode 56.
I can't wait for it. I'm so excited to hear about the guests that you have and me to geek out afterwards. But Tim, I want to thank you first and foremost for being a guest on the show, being such a supportive person, watching my shows, listening to my shows, and just being in the comments when I do my lives. It means a lot to me. It means that I'm going in the right direction, just knowing that I'm helping one person. So I want to thank you so much. And it's great talking with you. And I'm glad that we finally got a chance to get you on my podcast so that we can promote your amazing shows, because you're hustling just as hard as I am. But you seem to be doing it a lot better, getting higher.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Guests. Well, as the nerd in me, I feel that your guests are way high quality than the guests on the guests on my entrepreneur show aren't high quality. Just in my nerd part, I'm like, I wish I could talk with that person because that would be awesome. It's just the nerd part of me just thinking you have better guests than I do on my movie show. But anyways, Tim, again, thank you so much for being an amazing guest, sharing your story.
Thank you for having me.
Podcast with us. To my audience, make sure you check out the show notes down below to follow Tim either on the Twitters or the podcasting or whatever way you feel that you can support this amazing podcaster. And I highly suggest listening to Focus on Forward if you guys are having a rough time, because he has amazing stories that will help you get through those hard times. Because if other people have done it, you can do it too. And always remember to invest in yourself, because that's how you get better. Have a great night.